name is ILEMAKIN SOYINKA, and I am from Nigeria. I am Ijegba, from the western part of Nigeria. I'm a producer. I basically produce content for media across various media platforms, TV, radio, stage. Southern states of America, yes. The Caribbean, other than Brazil, which South America, but I sort of use them interchangeably. Caribbean's unfortunately not. Much to my regret. I've had several cancelled trips, including actually being at the airport twice on my way to Jamaica, and for reasons beyond my control, I had to leave the airport and go back. But I do hope to be in the Caribbean later this year. But Brazil, definitely, yeah. Might be accused of being tribalistic here, but the cultures you see in those parts, the Caribbean, southern parts of America, Southern America, is largely Yoruba culture, mainly and largely Yoruba culture. And that's because, for some reason, apart from the sheer numbers, the amount of slaves or the efforts of the slaves of Yoruba origin somehow ingeniously managed to retain large elements of their culture, including syncretism, within the Catholic Church, having somehow fused Yoruba, what is now known as Santeria in certain parts of Southern America, fused it with the Catholic, sort of tricked the slave masters into not realizing they had kept their cultures. Oh, my experience in Brazil was awesome. Totally by coincidence, I was also there during the carnival. I went to Bahia, then went to Rio. Of course, the Bahia parts of Brazil, the Yoruba culture is still so strong. Sao Paulo, Akaraje, which is really Akara, is still there, sold on the streets. There's a whole Yoruba section there, and you see the words and language, but the food is very much from the Yoruba culture, from the Nigerian or West African part of Africa. You see that there thoroughly. There's no mistaking it. But the experience, like I said, I also went totally coincidentally. It was a last minute thing, and I went during the carnival in Rio, so you can imagine what was. You have to be there to experience it. I went as part of some delegation, and it just happened that I was during the carnival. So we spent more time in Rio than we did in Sao Paulo, but it was a good one. Like I said earlier, you would notice a preponderance of the Yoruba in New Orleans, southern parts of America. Spoke about gumbo, which is a mishmash of things. There are various explanations or historical explanations how gumbo came about, but you see, like for instance, the use of okra as part of gumbo, things that have been carried over, which is like historical retention. So obviously the slaves went over there, and they still, of course, their masters are not going to give them the same sort of food they're eating. They needed to retain part of what they were eating. They didn't have practically all the ingredients, but they managed to find certain things, and they used that and did something approximating it. You find fascinating examples, like in Brazil, like I said, there's Akaraje, there's things close to moi moi and you think, how did they actually keep that? Yoruba has been, you probably at this rate probably have more Ifa priests in Cuba and Brazil than we have in Nigeria now. You see the use of the Brazilians, there's a lot of music which is Yoruba. I have a whole collection of CDs of Brazilian music, and it's all, so many songs dedicated to Ogun, Oshun, Yemoja, Of course, the pronunciations are slightly different. Same way you have the Eguns speaking Yoruba next door in Benin. And of course, Yorubas in Nigeria will say it's a funny Yoruba, but it is full Yoruba. And Dahomey people are, as far as I'm concerned, Yoruba. So you get that whole thing, and like I said, was that ability to infuse it with especially Catholicism for those in Southern America, the Caribbeans, as opposed to, which wasn't totally the case in the southern states of the US. But in South America, in the Caribbean, managed to infuse that in the Christian religion that would be forced on them, particularly Catholicism, and which allowed you to have different saints and hide their different gods under the saints. And the same way you're supplicating to God through the different saints and through Mary and Jesus, they could supplicate to Eledumare through Ogun or Shun, but rename them when they were with their masters, rename them with the English or Latin names while still keeping deep down. And that strong cultural DNA, it's such a strong cultural DNA that many times we say today, look at Nigeria today. I have tons of friends, people, their kids don't speak Yoruba. They're born and brought up speaking Yoruba, and now people my age, 90% of their kids, they don't speak Yoruba to their kids, they speak English. So technically we will soon find we have more Yoruba speaking people in the diaspora than we have in Nigeria, the tragedy of it. And to reclaim our culture, we're going to have to go back to Brazil and Cuba to bring back the Yoruba culture. For those who are culturally aware of their roots, I interviewed Cassandra Wilson about a couple of years ago. She's from the South of America. And when she did, I'll tell you the name of the album in a second, which won her the Grammys then, and she got the Time Woman of the Year, 2001, 2002. I interviewed her in New York and she just done this album. We're talking about, forgive my memory, will come back to me, the name of the song in particular. And I was talking to her about that, and she says how she had to go back to Mississippi to go record. She wasn't recording in New York, she wasn't recording in LA, she lived in New York. She had to go because she was talking about this journey back home. It was a song dedicated to Miles, and it's called something about Ile-Ife, coming back home. She had never been to Nigeria, but she has a strong connection to Nigeria, particularly to Ile-Ife. And she's talking about this journey. But for her to record the song, she had to go to Mississippi, where she feels she gets a vibe like she's in Africa, she's in Nigeria, and she's singing about the crossroads, Orita Meta. And she had to go there to get that sense. If you understand Yoruba culture, how important Orita Meta is, it's like a 3-point junction. It's very important in the sense of metaphysics and even reality of life. And she had to go back there to get that sense of it. There's a woman in America who had never been to Nigeria. Been trying to bring her here for a few years ago for the Muson Jazz Festival. And Lekon Babalola, who's been a member of her band, won a Grammy with her as well. He was here where we are now last week during the Jazz Festival. And because of that, they had this strong connection because Leko is from here. I've been trying to bring her to come to Nigeria, but the closest she could approximate was going to Mississippi. There she felt at home. A home she's physically never been to. She felt at home like she was in Ile-Ife. So it's pretty deep for those who are aware. Absolutely, I think if you look at it, there will be cross currents. There's no doubt. If you look at Jala, the hunters chant and call. You look at rap, you see things coming out of it. You're chanting, real deep down conscious rap. You see elements of chanting and whatnot. The Jalas chant, Yorubas chant for even medication, for efficacy. The power is in the word. And the set of conscious hip-hop guys, rap, knew that the word was power. So you spoke about your experiences. So there's definitely something. You look at, I remember when breakdance became very heavy in the early to mid 80s. And all I was a teenager then, all I ever saw was Bata. And the link between hip-hop and Bata, and breaking down Bata. And Peter Badejo, who's a Nigerian dancer choreographer, has got an OBE for dance. In fact, he's doing something called Bata Bade, breaking down the etymology and the movement of Bata. And in some of the documentation he's done, you can see how breakdance came from that source. There's an unspoken, even certain elements of tap dance, there's an unspoken, there's a connection. If you really look at it, and a few people have written about this, I'll refer you to a few things, but you can see that that's there. It's there. You can only deny it if you want to close your eyes. I think as more interactions occur, definitely. You've got you spoke about the fella on Broadway, Jay-Z and co. Fella's story done as a musical. a film on Fela has been trying to do one for a decade plus, met with the producers. It hasn't happened. But that happened. Jay-Z, who had been here to Nigeria, Will Smith, when the show was transferring from Broadway, from off-Broadway and trying to transfer to off-Broadway, they got in touch with one or two Nigerians I know about as well, and they wanted them to get involved as well to produce that. But yes, it brought attention to the man Fela, it brought attention to Afrobeat, his legacy Afrobeat, it brought attention to Nigeria. But there also been cross currents, because then we also had been promoting shows bringing the big hip-hop moguls to Nigeria, Beyonce, Jay-Z, everybody. And now Jay-Z, who's bought over this online music streaming app, Tidal, they had realized, since I was involved in promoting some of those concerts, working on those concerts from 2006 till 2011, they've seen the synergy that's in the Nigerian market and realized, well, if people can pay, we used to hear negative stories about Nigeria, but here we are playing in Nigeria, having a whale of a time. People are footing our bills, and we're seeing thousands of people in the audience. Commerce will always follow. But Jay-Z with his Tidal now says last week, hey, my cousin is in Nigeria checking out Nigerian talent. We want to sign up more people, and it looks like they're doing something with Chocolate City. I know they went to see Don Jazzy, and then they went to Chocolate City, and it looks like they might be doing some stuff with Chocolate City, the music label group. That synergy was always going to be there because there's a market. And they also themselves, everybody's, we used to have Nigerian musicians saying to us, I want to go do something with Jay-Z, I want to go do something with this person, I'm going to pay them. And I was like, why do you want to pay them? Give it a little bit of time. They need to either come look for you or they need to pay you. Don't pay them, just let it happen naturally. That merger is happening, everybody's looking towards here, and there are influences which go both ways. I think it's intrinsic, it's in there. So everybody's looking at Nigeria, everyone's looking at Ghana, Sarkozy is doing his own thing, boys are rapping here, doing hip hop. It's a natural synergy. And there are roots, which many of them don't even realize, whether it's hip hop, whether it's R&B, there's roots. And there's a new young generation sort of walking in different ways, but they have these roots, which many of them are not aware of. But then there's also the commerce, which is very important. Once there's money to be made, everybody will find each other.